All right, our next speaker will be Dr. Grayson Brown. Dr. Grayson, would you be able to load your presentation now? Okay, Dr. Grayson Brown is an internationally recognized public health entomologist and has been active for over 40 years. He is currently serving as an executive director for the Puerto Rico Vector Control Unit, responsible for vector management throughout Puerto Rico. I now welcome Dr. Grayson to present on fighting arbovirus disease in Puerto Rico with WALS.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm delighted to be able to speak at this important event. Puerto Rico is a small Caribbean island that is about 150 kilometers east to west, maybe 50 kilometers north to south. Has about 3 million people, most of whom are in, well, about a third of whom are in the San Juan area. This whole area is pretty much solid city, and we call it the metro area. And that's also where we get the majority of our dengue cases. Our current dengue situation looks sort of like this. We have a couple of hundred cases a month lately, but it's dropped off as the seasonal drop off in mosquito population. We had a really cold January down here, and so that suppressed mosquito activity and the resulting dengue. But the thing that is the more serious issue with us is that it's always been for the last several decades just dengue-1 here in Puerto Rico for the most part. Oops, excuse me. And but this past year we started getting dengue-2 coming in. And the problem with that is that most of the people, we have about 70 to 90% of the adults are seropositive. And because it's just been dengue-1, they're seropositive mostly to dengue-1. So now there's very little herd immunity to dengue-2, and dengue-2, especially when it follows 1, tends to cause a higher incidence of severe dengue, about double. You can see up here, about double the percentage of severe dengue that we were getting with just dengue-1. So I'm sure that once the mosquito population starts coming back, we can expect dengue-2 to be increasing throughout Puerto Rico, and probably be looking at a relatively large outbreak in this coming year. This is what the distribution of the cases looks like over the last year or so in the metro area. So there's not really a well-defined cluster anymore. There was for a while, and there still is in some parts of Puerto Rico, but in the areas where we get most of the dengue cases, not so much. We have about 2,500 traps in our monitoring network, our mosquito monitoring network. We test all of the mosquito pools that come out of that. We only have Aedes aegypti. We don't have Aedes albopictus. So aegypti is, we consider it to be our only significant dengue vector there. But the important thing here from our mosquito pool data is you can see about 7. It follows pretty much the same breakdown that you have with the human population. About 2/3 of the pools are dengue-1, about a third of dengue-2. This time next year, it'll probably be reversed. Dengue-2 will be much more common than dengue-1. But this gray line here, which is the mosquito pools that we were getting throughout 22, is the real story. As you can see, starting in August, it started shooting up, and it has continued to go up. And so this was this gives us really quite a bit of concern with the positive pools going up, even while the population was in decline. So we've been really targeting the hotspots as they up for the last 2 years now, and in our hotspot protocol. And I'm sorry, I took some of these slides out of other presentations that I didn't think, and some of these slides are in Spanish. So I'll have to try to the Spanish is the dominant language here in Puerto Rico, and but most of us are bilingual. Anyway, I'll try to interpret if I can remember to do that. So our hotspot protocol relies on mosquito monitoring, individual inspections of homes and breeding sites, particularly targeting the more cryptic breeding sites like cisterns and septic tanks and that type of thing. Molecular testing for mosquito pools for the presence of dengue. We also test chikungunya and Zika at the same time, and we serotype any dengue we find. And then we go house to house in most of our areas, handing out educational material, repellents, and in some cases nets to help people, especially after big storms when power goes out for large pieces of the island. We use AGO traps as a surveillance tool and also as a control tool. We can just put out so many traps that we can catch enough female Aegypti to actually drive the population down. And then WALS is one part of this protocol here. So like everybody else really here has said, WALS is really best used as a component in a more comprehensive management program. This shows the current hotspots that we're working in, and there are some of the different cities. Really, the only thing that's important here is that in every one of those, WALS plays a relatively prominent role. Some of these we change up methodologies and components that we use there, depending on what the capacity is at the level of the municipality. But my unit does the WALS, and so we do it at each one of these hotspots. I'm going to be talking about an important number here, 3 females per trap per week. We believe that's a threshold level based on work that has been done by the CDC dengue branch, which is there in Puerto Rico. They're the ones that developed this trap. And so we consider this a threshold. This is our target population density. If we get the population density below that, then dengue goes down. If the density is above that, then dengue goes up. So that's not actually quite that simple, of course, we all know, but it is a simple number that we can give to our municipal colleagues that they can keep track of and use effectively. So we use these traps again, like I say, for surveillance and for control if we put enough of them out. And we find that if we put about 3 of them out per house, we get good control. And so for a hotspot, that's the doable thing if the hotspot's not too big. One of the big problems that we struggle with, and this has been mentioned in some of the other talks today, is insecticide resistance. Permethrin-based product, Evolor, Permex, those kinds of things are pretty much the only ULV product that's used in Puerto Rico by the Department of Health. And you can see it's really almost effective, 4% mortality, 3%, 0%. In fact, we just finished a genomic study with some off-island colleagues, and they found KDR resistance at 4 different loci, and 3 of those loci appear to be at fixation. So it's basically hopeless. We basically have decided that we cannot use adulticides, or traditional adulticides, against Aegypti, and really the Puerto Rico Vector Control Unit has never recommended the use of adulticides for Aegypti control or dengue suppression. This is what that looks like operationally. So the yellow line here is the Aegypti population. The vertical red lines are dates when this particular city, Carolina, which is a large city, applied adulticides. And so they spray here and they spray here, and no effect on Aegypti, no effect on Aegypti, no effect on, the story around, absolutely no effect whatsoever on the adult Aegypti as reflected in our counts. But still, Aegypti is one of 40 species that we have on the island, and the other 39 appear to be pretty susceptible to permethrin. So when they go out and they spray permethrin, they don't kill any Aegypti, but they get a whole bunch of other things. These are all mosquitoes that were killed, and we swept these up off of a 4 foot by 4 foot stoop. A lot of mosquito bodies in there, and it can really help. I mean, the nuisance value can be quite significant. This is a short video here of the catch that we got out of a single BG trap one night. This is all Aedes tenorhynchus, the black marsh mosquito, following a hurricane that we had. And in this particular area, actually, in a lot of area of Puerto Rico, at that time, there was no power. Power was out. It was hot. It was humid, and people were having to sleep with their windows open. And nobody has window screens, and so it was really made for miserable conditions there. Late afternoon, early evening, we were measuring 35, 40, things a minute. So it's pretty significant. Pretty significant problem. So the permethrin truck goes through there and really helps with that problem, but it doesn't help do anything with Aedes aegypti. So for that, fortunately, we do have larvicides that are sterile effective, and so we mostly use vector-back WDG. We've been using it now for about 4 years. It does have an odor; it leaves some residue, but this doesn't really tolerate it pretty well. And in some of the places where we've been using it quite a bit now, if we use another product that doesn't have that odor, that doesn't have the residue, the people are suspicious. They wonder if we're just spraying water to make them feel good. They've got to where they if it doesn't have that characteristic odor, they're suspicious that it maybe is not the good stuff. The local authorities don't object to it. They're pretty well convinced now that the product is just fine. They haven't had any problems reported anywhere in Puerto Rico, and so we're okay with that now. We mostly use the 25-pound drums. That's the most convenient size for us. We primarily apply them through truck-mounted mist blowers. We use 2 of them, Buffalo turbines and the smaller A1 Rangers. They are different units. Each one has its own set of advantages relative to the other one. But you go through here, Buffalo turbines, pretty widely used machine. We can also apply granular formulations, which we do sometimes. The important thing for us is that it has a higher capacity there, so you could load up the truck and you go spray, a larger number of acres. And also very important with us is that it's more rust resistant. And then the Ranger, though, is a lot less expensive. It's smaller and lighter, and you can put it on a smaller truck. Before I came to Puerto Rico, I did a lot of work in the Pacific, as far west as Indonesia, and we used a lot of these little trucks like this. And these little mini trucks, the beds fold down, the side walls fold down to make a complete flat bed here. And on a little truck like this, well, an A1 sprayer would be just fine. But this Buffalo turbine is going to be too heavy. It's going to be too long, and it would be a mistake to try to put that on that little truck. So depending on, the decision as to which of these 2 machines to go with also affects what type of vehicle you might have. There is a little bit of difference in the dispersion from the machines, but you have to go pretty far away from the spray in order to actually see it. This shows you 2 different water sensitive cards that were placed 100 meters away from a truck spray swath in very calm conditions early in the morning. Humidity was high, and okay, the Buffalo has more drops on that piece of paper, but frankly, we generally overlap our swaths in distances less than 100 meters. So I don't really think that it's that big of a deal. If we had these papers up closer, you really don't see much difference at all. So that's our analysis or our opinion of those 2 machines. We, like Andrea, we also tested this with different levels of exposure using bioassay cups that we would then come along later and add water and introduce mosquitoes to it. And what we found is what other folks have reported here tonight, and that is that you get pretty good penetration through vegetation here. You have, in this case, we'd have 10 different houses, and for most of those houses, you have 100% or near 100% kill, except for a couple which seem to have some kind of a problem because even the open sky levels were down pretty well. But for most cases, it's able to get through this vegetation pretty effectively, surprisingly so, really. So how well does it work? Like I say, we've used this now for 4 or 5 years, and I don't want to go through all of the hotspots that we treated because it's been a bunch, but I'll show just a few very typical examples. So this was one from Dorado, which is right next door to San Juan, and we began with debris pickup, community education, all that stuff, and that helped drive the population down. The blue here is the Dorado, red is San Juan, which we were not working in at that time. And then when we started WALS, the Dorado line just keeps on going down and gets right at 5 mosquitoes, 5 females per trap per week. We were hoping to get below 3, but this got it down from much higher numbers overall. There was a tendency of the untreated San Juan population to drift down as well. This is December, but clearly the treatments had a bigger effect on the population in Dorado. We also have used it in quite a few public housing areas. We call them residenciales. This one in particular here, Alejandrino, we were running about 5, 6, 7 dengue cases per week in this particular one. It's a pretty good sized one. We went out, set out a trap, some traps. We got 35 females the first week, and then we, threw the kitchen sink at it, did all of our magic here, the various interventions that we used in our protocol, and the population started going down and went down after a week from 62 to 24 and then on down. The positive mosquito pools peaked at 10. That's 10 pools out of 40. So that's 25% of the pools were positive for dengue, all dengue 1. And those pools went down, then mirroring the drop in the mosquito population. And the human case count went to 0. This was in 2021, and it's been like we haven't had any cases. I mean, at all. It's been a pretty long-lasting level of control. I think really mainly because of the debris pickup, community engagement, and they saw what was happening. I mean, they were seeing what was happening in terms of dengue cases, and so they have continued that with to at least to some degree. Another residencial had very similar results. The population went down, even though the population on the outside of that residencial remained relatively unchanged. So that was working pretty well. And then here in Caguas, we had another problem. This is actually just up to a few weeks ago. We started WALS back here when the population was around 15 or so per trap per week. Population went down pretty well. This was WALS plus control traps. Went down. It got down to around 2. We thought things were good. We stopped WALS. Population started coming back. Got up, and it looked like it might be getting ready to take off. So we restarted WALS. Population went down, and then we had a spray pump went out, and a couple of our people got COVID for the second time. And so we were crippled there for a little bit. Population started to drift up, and we got back up on our feet, and population has been driven down again. This I think was as of about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we just stopped this about 2 weeks ago, and it still seems to be staying down. Culebra is one of the islands off the east coast of Puerto Rico, part of Puerto Rico that's populated. It's a very, very popular tourist site, one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, one of the top 5 rated beautiful beaches in the world, incredible beach. Anyway, we were monitoring this population, doing a variety of non-insecticidal methods. It was pushing the population down more or less, but we kind of hit a limit. We weren't going anywhere. So we introduced WALS out here. This was November or so, and we've continued to do that. WALS, and the population has drifted down to where it's consistently below that magic 3 mosquitoes per trap per week. So, altogether, our results are really a lot like the published scientific studies that have been reported, and a lot like the results that we've seen reported here in the other talks tonight. And that is that WALS is by itself really not quite sufficient. You'll get some reduction, significant amount of reduction, but not enough really to stop dengue. And it's too expensive really for at least for us, for an island-wide routine spray program. So it's not a tool that would be very effective in, say, a complaint-driven decision-making program where vector control is really in response to citizen complaints. WALS not going to work very well in that situation. But when it's combined in a community engagement, debris pickup, trapping out, hotspots, an overall integrated vector management program, especially if you're dealing with a highly insecticide-resistant Aedes aegypti population, where there's really not very many other options, well, then WALS really has an important role. And really, given the level that we have in terms of insecticide resistance, if it wasn't for WALS, we would really be hurting. I mean, our program is clearly much stronger with WALS than it otherwise would be. So we're pretty happy with it. We've gotten to where we're very convinced that it's a major part of our program now, and expect it to continue to be an important part of our program going forward. So thank you very much.